It's time for tech. Now, we're looking at software development basics. We started last week, we were talking about programming for beginners, and then we have Maryann Azodo, a software programmer. It's great to have you. You are welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so a quick recap of what we did last week. We spoke about programming for beginners. Yeah, just very quick recap, 1 or 2 lines. What can we tell them? What did we do last week?
Okay, so last week we talked about how to become a programmer, like just beginners, and how kids and adults also can learn without having a degree in computer science.
In computer science and all of that. Okay, so now software development, yeah? First of all, what is software? What is a software?
Programs, instructions that you can give to the computer, operating information that the computer needs.
Okay, so that is software. So now we've heard that thing that recently, there's been a trend that, hey, come on, you don't need to know code, or you don't need to know how to code to develop a software. You know, it's been going on that, hey, come on, a lot of things are now automated. You can just, you know, like creating apps now. You don't need to. We'll get into that 1 year later. But then, does one need to know code? Is that true? Can you create software, or can you develop software without knowing code?
No.
Without knowing how to code?
You have to. I think what people mean is if you want to have a website now, there are some things that are ready for you that you can just download the template and edit. But then there are some templates that you need to change the things that you don't want. So if you have a software like that, you will have to go to the back end and correct it. And that's not like, if you also need a software that your system really needs except a website, you really do not need to know how to code, even if it's just for readability or for maybe you want to enhance what is already there. You really do know.
So thank God that you mentioned website design now. Yeah. Now, is it true that for websites that people don't code, that they are more they are more sophisticated than websites that you use a template to put in the stuff that you need to do? Do you have differences with all of that? How much, for websites that are very complicated, how is it important that you need to know how to code? Okay,
so for the websites that you need to edit, there are things that you cannot touch because those people have rights to them, so you have to leave it as it is. But if you are the one creating it from scratch, you can do whatever you want to do on your own, and you can change whatever you want to change. But for some of these templates, you can't. And it now restricts you to using exactly what the people that put it out there want. Okay, so their own style.
All right, so let's go to software development, the process. How do you, if you have to develop, that's what you do and all of that. Take us through that process. From the beginning, how does it start? How does it progress? How does it end?
Okay, for software development, there are things we call databases. And there is also the software development life cycle, which goes into, there are different processes. Before you start developing a software, there's planning, there's analysis, there is then the design that comes, and then the development, the coding and implementation. All this has to happen first before you go into coding. So the database is, you know what a database is?
No, some people don't know.
The database is just like a container that holds your information.
All the information on whatever you are developing.
Let's assume that you entered your details into a website, and then it saves the information. Or even when you log into somewhere, Google asks you, do you want us to remember your password? So what they do is they collect the information you supplied, and then they save it in the database. So that the next time that you want to log in and you supply your name, it goes to the system and searches for your name or the unique information that is saved and uses it to pull out the information that it has saved in the system so it doesn't forget it. So it's the database that holds all those information.
How do you gather this database from the beginning?
How do you gather the data?
If you want to develop a software, how do you gather this database?
From what people supplied. There are different types of databases, SQL, Postgres. There are many, there are relational databases. So when you supply an information, it collects it. That's why sometimes you see yourself, you've even forgotten your password, but then it remembers it. Definitely. And it also has a way of telling you to find your password or change your password because it knows that it's you. And it does this because some people can answer the same name. Someone else is answering Mike, another person is answering Mike. But how does the system understand that it's this Mike that is logging in and pulls out your password? You supplied your phone number, which is a unique identifier for you. You supplied your email. So when you put your name and you put your email address, it pulls your information out. That's how it remembers you.
All right. So database, that's the first part. moving on from there, what next? What's the next process?
Yeah, like I talked about the planning analysis. Okay. You have to, before you develop any software, you have to plan. There is always a meeting that comes first. You talk about, okay, what do you want the system to look like? Do I need to do a questionnaire? If it's a system that requires you to carry out a questionnaire, do I need to go out and collect all this? What do I need to do? I want to develop a website that talks about all the TV stations in Nigeria. Then that means I have to visit all of them to collect information from them on how they operate.
Okay.
And I use that information and design. What do I mean by designing? You have to draw the state diagrams. You have to draw the use case, the flow diagrams, the use cases. This way, when you're developing the website, you can go back to your design and know what you've not done that you need to implement. You also write the required information that is the system also needs. So once you collect all this information and you do the design and you have them complete, you can now go into the coding process.
Okay, now go to the coding process.
That's when you now start to code.
To code. All of this, do you do this alone, or do you have a team that does this? Like when it comes to designing, to planning, do you do it alone?
For you to be a software developer, you have to know all of this. Yes.
So you have to do it alone, yeah?
If you know, sometimes there are people that do the front end. So what you're thinking about is the back end, but you still have to understand the design. You still have to understand the functional and non-functional requirements. It's important for you to know exactly what you're doing. So that's why when you're in school, when they start teaching you Python, for me, they teach you the basics. You can just do basic even numbers and odd numbers printing out. But when it gets to software development, you have to understand computer architecture. You have to understand software engineering, software development life cycle, data structures, database.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I hope somebody out there was able to speak something. So you're saying that even if you don't fully do it, you have to understand it. So that if you have a team working with you, you know what they are doing.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Wonderful. That was quite a lot, but then definitely this is something that we can go back. You can go back out there on YouTube and check out, so that if you want to begin a career as a software developer, you know exactly where you're headed towards. Thank you, Maryann. It was a pleasure having you on this show. And that's it on Tech this Monday morning. We'll take this time out now and we get back. There's quite a lot more on this show. Stay with us.